The starship Endeavour descended slowly toward the shining surface of Valaris, a planet far beyond the known reaches of human exploration. Its towers glimmered like crystal spires under the light of a twin sun, and its rivers shimmered with colors no human eye had ever seen. Captain Elias Ward, the human diplomat, stood at the observation deck, his hands gripping the railing as he stared at the alien city below. "This place, it's unreal," he muttered, his voice echoing slightly in the cabin. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara Hayes, stood beside him. "It's more than that, sir," she said quietly. "It's alive. Look at those lights. They're not just decorations, they move almost like they're watching." Elias nodded but didn't respond. He had been trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and leadership, but nothing in his experience could have prepared him for this moment. Valaris was not just an alien world. It was the seat of power for one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, the Valarians, and he was to meet their queen. The Endeavour landed in a broad plaza surrounded by translucent towers that shimmered in the sunlight. A welcoming committee of Valarian officials awaited them. Their forms were humanoid but taller, their skin a soft glowing blue with 4 arms and eyes that reflected every color of the spectrum. Their movements were precise, almost elegant. Yet there was a sharpness to them that reminded Elias that this was not a race to underestimate. The ship's ramp extended, and Elias took the first step down, followed by his team. The plaza was silent except for the soft hum of energy flowing through the structures around them. One of the officials, a tall Valarian named Thalas, bowed and spoke in a melodic voice that somehow reached even Elias's thoughts. "Welcome, humans. The Queen awaits you. Follow me." Elias exchanged a glance with Mara. He had anticipated a formal greeting, maybe even a ceremony, but nothing had prepared him for the weight of expectation that pressed on him as they walked. Every step was observed, every gesture measured. The Valarians were clearly testing them, gauging their reactions. They were led through halls that seemed to stretch endlessly, made of translucent crystal and glowing veins of energy. Strange patterns shimmered across the walls, almost like living symbols, and Elias felt a pull in his mind, as if the building itself were studying him. Finally, they entered a vast chamber. At the center, seated on a throne of light and crystal, was the Queen herself. Kira. She was taller than any human by far, and her presence was both intimidating and mesmerizing. Her skin reflected the colors of her surroundings, shifting subtly as she moved, and her 4 arms rested gracefully on the arms of her throne. Her eyes, larger than human eyes, seemed to see into Elias's mind, reading his thoughts, his fears, his ambitions. "Captain Elias Ward," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "You have come far to reach my world." Elias bowed as deeply as his human body allowed. "Your Majesty, it is an honor to meet you. I am here as a representative of humanity, seeking cooperation and understanding between our species." Kira tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Cooperation and understanding. Bold words for a human. Many believe your kind is unpredictable, fragile, and short-lived. Yet here you stand." Elias swallowed but held his ground. "We may be young in the galaxy, Your Majesty, but humans are resilient. We adapt, we learn, and we persevere." A faint smile touched Kira's lips. "We shall see." The court around her remained silent, their many eyes fixed on Elias. Their stillness made him uneasy. It was a test of composure, he realized, and one he could not fail. Kira leaned forward slightly, and for a moment, the entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. "Tell me, human," she said softly, "do you understand the weight of words? Not just the ones you speak, but the ones you carry with your presence, your decisions, your heart?" Elias felt the weight of the question press down on him. It was not a simple inquiry about diplomacy or politics. It was about character, integrity, and understanding the world beyond one's own species. He chose his words carefully. "I do, Your Majesty," he replied. "Every action we take, every word we speak carries meaning. I will do my best to honor your trust and your world." The Queen studied him for several long moments. Then, almost imperceptibly, she leaned closer and spoke words that sent a ripple through the court. "If you were my husband." The chamber went still. The silence was absolute, filled with curiosity, shock, and something else that Elias could not immediately name. Every Valarian in the room froze, their attention locked on him. Elias blinked, confused. He understood the literal meaning of her words, but the intent, The implication, it was something entirely alien. He opened his mouth to respond but thought better of it. There was no immediate answer, and any wrong word could be disastrous. Kira's eyes softened, though her gaze remained sharp. "Do not speak yet. Let us see how your mind and your heart act before your words." The Queen signaled to her attendants, and a series of tests began. They were subtle, designed not to harm but to observe. The first was a mental puzzle, a series of floating geometric shapes that shifted and changed. Elias had never seen anything like it, but he focused, noticing patterns using logic and intuition. In moments he solved the puzzle, arranging the shapes into a harmonious form that pleased the court. Next came a test of empathy. A Valerian child, biologically unlike humans but with familiar emotions, was placed in a situation of mild distress. Elias had to comfort the child, understand its fear, and calm it without coercion. He knelt, spoke softly, and made gestures that conveyed reassurance. Slowly, the child's eyes brightened and the room reacted with cautious approval. Finally, a test of courage. A simulated threat, holographic in nature but highly realistic, challenged the court's defenses. Elias had to make a choice: retreat to safety or step forward and protect those around him. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, analyzing the threat and mitigating it in ways the aliens had not expected. The court murmured quietly, impressed despite themselves. Humans, they realized, were not only clever but unpredictable in ways that were beneficial. Elias's combination of thought, intuition, and emotion was unusual, even remarkable. Kira's eyes met his once more. "You may be young in experience, human, but you are older in understanding than many I have met. That is rare." Elias felt a flicker of relief but knew the trials were far from over. The Queen's words, "If you were my husband," lingered in his mind. He could not yet interpret their meaning, but he understood that his actions, not his words, would define him in this alien court. The first part of the day ended with a ceremonial feast. Elias observed Valerian customs carefully, noting the significance of each movement, each offering. He saw that their culture valued precision, thought, and grace, yet beneath it was an appreciation for courage, insight, and integrity, the qualities that humans had demonstrated in unexpected ways. As he retired to his quarters later that evening, Elias reflected on the day's events. He had come to Valaris expecting negotiation, perhaps conflict. Instead, he had found a challenge of character, a test that went beyond diplomacy into the realm of understanding, empathy, and courage. He knew the coming days would demand more of him. The court was not merely observing, it was evaluating. And the Queen, her intentions remained a mystery, one he had to navigate carefully. But one thing was clear: humans, despite their youth and perceived fragility, had qualities that could inspire respect even among the galaxy's oldest civilizations. And Elias Ward was determined to show that humanity was not only capable, but extraordinary. Outside his window, the towers of Valaris glimmered under the twin suns, and the city pulsed like a living organism. For the first time in his career, Elias felt that humanity might truly have a place among the stars, not just as visitors, but as equals, partners, and perhaps even something more. And somewhere deep in the heart of the alien palace, the Queen watched, her thoughts unreadable, yet tinged with a faint curiosity and a hope that only humans could ignite. The morning light of Valaris painted the crystal towers in shades of gold and violet. Captain Elias Ward awoke with a sense of purpose. Today would be another test, though he did not yet know its full nature. The palace of Queen Kira, with its flowing corridors and shimmering walls, had become both awe-inspiring and intimidating. Every moment spent here reminded him that humans were visitors in a world far older and wiser than their own. Elias dressed in the simple uniform of the human diplomatic corps. As he prepared, Lieutenant Mara Hayes entered the quarters with a small datapad. "Good morning, sir," she said. "The Queen has requested your presence for another series of exercises. She's watching you closely." Elias ran a hand through his hair. "I expected that. It's not a competition for rank, Mara. It's a test of character. I just need to make sure we don't misunderstand their customs." Mara nodded. "Just remember, humans are unusual. They'll be watching how you think, not just what you say." The humans exited their quarters and were led through halls that seemed to ripple with energy. The walls emitted soft, warm light, and the floor beneath their feet pulsed faintly as though alive. Elias found himself instinctively moving carefully, aware of the eyes that seemed to follow him from every crystal surface. In the central chamber, the Queen awaited them. Her presence filled the room with a quiet power that Elias could feel pressing against his chest. "Captain Ward," Kyra greeted, her voice soft yet resonant. "Today you will face new challenges. Each is designed not to harm you but to reveal your mind and your heart. Your actions will speak louder than any words," Elias bowed. "I am ready, Your Majesty." The first challenge began immediately. Floating above the chamber were translucent orbs, each containing a small fragment of information. Some showed images, others emitted sounds or scents unfamiliar to human senses. The task was clear: arrange them in a pattern that demonstrated understanding and harmony. Elias studied the orbs carefully. Each one seemed chaotic at first, but he noticed subtle connections. The color of one reflected in another. The rhythm of a sound matched the pattern of movement in another orb. He reached out with steady hands, moving the orbs into a sequence that felt natural, almost musical. A hush fell over the court. The orbs glowed brighter, forming a complex, beautiful design. The court murmured softly. They had not expected a human to solve such a test so quickly. Elias realized that human strength lay in pattern recognition and intuition, qualities that allowed him to see relationships others might miss. "Interesting," Kira said, her gaze thoughtful. "You do not merely follow instructions. You interpret. You create meaning." Elias nodded. "That is how humans learn, Your Majesty. We look for patterns and then act according to what we understand." The next challenge was subtler and more personal. A young Veilarian child appeared in the chamber, its skin shimmering like liquid crystal. It held a small, delicate object, a gift perhaps, and its large eyes were wide with fear. "Gain its trust," the Queen instructed. "Show understanding and demonstrate care." Elias approached slowly, kneeling to bring himself to the child's level. "Hello," he said softly. "I won't hurt you. Can you show me what you have there?" The child hesitated, then handed him the object. It was fragile, unlike anything Elias had seen before. He held it carefully, examining it without breaking it. "This is beautiful," he said. "Do you like it?" The child's eyes brightened slightly. Elias smiled gently, allowing his own emotions to guide him. "I see why this is important to you. Let's make sure it stays safe." By the time the exercise ended, the child's fear had melted away. The Queen's eyes lingered on Elias, approving yet inscrutable. The court whispered quietly. Humans' ability to empathize across species lines was unusual, even remarkable. But the final challenge would test more than mind or heart. It would test courage. The chamber darkened suddenly, and holographic figures appeared. They were menacing, alien in form, moving with speed and precision. Their purpose was clear: to intimidate, perhaps to simulate danger that could harm the court. Elias's instincts kicked in. He scanned the room quickly, noting positions, evaluating potential threats, and considering the safety of everyone around him. Then he acted. With calm and precision, he intercepted the simulated threat, directing the holograms away from the child and the Queen. He used a combination of logic, quick reflexes, and creativity, manipulating the holographic environment to neutralize the danger. Every movement was deliberate, every choice calculated yet flexible. When the simulation ended, the chamber returned to normal light. A silence followed, heavy with admiration. Even the Queen seemed momentarily surprised. "You act with clarity and courage," she said. "Few beings in this galaxy would choose to protect others without hesitation. Your species is unusual." Elias allowed himself a small sigh of relief. He knew these were tests, but the Queen's words hinted at something more. Humans had something that aliens often lacked: instinctive moral courage coupled with adaptable intelligence. As the day progressed, Elias was introduced to various court customs. Meals involved complex rituals of serving, tasting, and offering, each movement symbolic. Conversations were filled with subtle gestures, almost invisible to the untrained eye, that conveyed meaning as much as words. Elias observed, asked careful questions, and adapted. Each successful interaction earned him cautious approval from the court. Still, the shadow of the Queen's words lingered in his mind. If you were my husband. What could it mean? Was it a metaphor, a test, or something else entirely? The humans had no way of knowing. They could only act with honesty, courage, and understanding, the qualities they had always relied upon. In the afternoon, a formal debate was held. Elias was paired with an alien diplomat who specialized in strategy and negotiation. The topic: the potential benefits and risks of interspecies alliances. Elias spoke with clarity and logic, addressing concerns with patience. When the diplomat presented a complex argument, Elias responded with innovative solutions, combining human adaptability with moral reasoning. The court watched intently, noting the human's ability to balance pragmatism with empathy, a rare trait even among Valerians. By the evening, the human team had completed a day full of trials, demonstrations, and interactions. Elias felt exhausted but exhilarated. Humans had been judged not by the strength of their weapons, their technology, or their numbers, but by the qualities that truly define them: intelligence, courage, adaptability, and empathy. Queen Kira addressed him privately as he prepared to leave the chamber. "You have performed well today, Captain Ward," she said softly. "Yet understanding is never complete. Your species is unpredictable, and that is both a weakness and a strength. We shall see which prevails in the days to come." Elias bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will continue to learn, to understand, and to prove humanity's worth." The Queen's gaze softened, though her thoughts remained veiled. "Humans are intriguing," she murmured. "You may yet surprise us." As Elias returned to his quarters, he reflected on the lessons of the day. The challenges were not simply tests. They were a window into the values and priorities of the Valerian civilization. He realized that his success depended not on imitation, but on embracing the qualities that made humans unique. That night, as Valaris's twin moons rose over the shimmering city, Elias stood by the window of his quarters. The towers of the palace glowed softly like a living organism, and he understood that this world was observing him as much as he was observing it. He whispered to himself, a quiet affirmation: "We may be young, but we have what it takes." And somewhere in the heart of the palace, the Queen watched, her thoughts unreadable, yet her curiosity about this human grew stronger. She sensed something rare, a spark that might bridge the divide between their species, a quality that only humans could bring to the galaxy. The day had tested Elias's mind, heart, and courage, but he knew that greater challenges lay ahead. The court was watching, the Queen was watching, and the galaxy beyond waited. Humanity had arrived, not as conquerors or invaders, but as equals, strange, unpredictable, and remarkable. And Captain Elias Ward was determined to show the universe why humans were worth noticing. The next morning, Valaris was bathed in a soft golden light, the twin suns casting long shadows across the crystal spires. Captain Elias Ward awoke with a sense of anticipation. The day ahead promised new trials, but something deeper lingered in his mind. The Queen's words from the previous day: "If you were my husband." As Elias prepared, Lieutenant Mara Hayes entered the quarters with a small tray of nourishment. "Sir, the Queen has requested your presence in the Hall of Reflection. She wishes to speak with you privately before the council convenes." Elias nodded. "I understand. Let's move quickly. The sooner we face this, the better." The journey to the Hall of Reflection was quiet. The corridor seemed to pulse gently beneath their feet, and the walls shimmered with patterns that shifted with each step. Elias found himself thinking about human and Valerian differences. Here, communication was not just about words, it was about presence, movement, and intention. Upon entering the hall, Elias saw the Queen waiting. Kira's throne sat atop a raised dais, but unlike the ceremonial halls he had visited before, this room was quieter, more intimate. Crystals hung from the ceiling, refracting light into thousands of tiny rainbows, and the air was filled with a soft hum that resonated in Elias's chest. "Captain Ward," Kira began, her voice soft yet commanding. "Yesterday, you showed skill in understanding empathy and courage. You have earned respect, though that alone is not sufficient." Elias bowed. "I am here to serve your Majesty, in whatever way humanity can be of use." The Queen's gaze softened, though it remained intense. "Your species is unpredictable," she said, "and yet I see potential that even my advisors did not anticipate. You think, you feel, and you act in ways that are unusual, even inspiring. Elias's mind raced. Was this praise? Or a prelude to some greater challenge? He had learned to remain calm, to measure his responses carefully. Thank you, Your Majesty. Humans strive to understand even when understanding seems impossible. Kira's eyes seemed to search his mind. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke words that echoed like music in the hall. If you were my husband. The court had not yet gathered, but the words still carried weight, and Elias felt the gravity of them settle over him. He did not speak immediately. The meaning was layered and foreign, both personal and political. He understood that in Valerian culture, marriage could symbolize alliances, trust, and bonds beyond mere diplomacy. Do not answer yet, Kira continued. Observe, listen, and act. Words can be misleading, but actions reveal truth. Elias nodded, his mind focusing on what was before him. He knew the Queen's statement was not idle. It carried expectations and opportunities. But understanding her intention would require more than observation. It would require insight, empathy, and a careful display of human qualities that were sometimes underestimated. The first part of the day involved observing the council. Alien dignitaries, all multi-limbed and multicolored, gathered to discuss matters of interstellar trade, alliances, and defense. Their discussion was precise, logical, and complex. But Elias noticed undercurrents, small gestures, subtle eye movements, and pauses that indicated tension, rivalry, and strategy. One diplomat, a tall Valerian named Thalys, whispered to a colleague when Elias passed. The words were unintelligible to him, but the intent was clear. There were factions within the court, some supportive of humans, others skeptical. Elias understood that his presence alone had shifted the balance of influence. Humans, the newcomers, were a wild card. Kira observed him quietly, her forearms folded with grace. Elias felt as if her attention measured every thought, every expression. Yet instead of intimidation, her gaze inspired a calm determination. He realized that humans' ability to improvise, empathize, and act decisively in unexpected situations could be a tool to navigate this complex world. Midday brought another test. Kira had prepared a simulation, an interstellar crisis involving a neighboring system at risk of collapse. The council debated solutions, but the process was slow, methodical, and constrained by tradition. Elias stepped forward, carefully listening to the concerns of each representative. He proposed a solution that combined logic and compassion. Redistribute resources temporarily, provide aid without infringing on sovereignty, and create a communication network to prevent future crises. The council was silent at first, then murmurs of approval began. Some were skeptical, others curious. Kira's eyes sparkled faintly as if amused and pleased simultaneously. Humans, she realized, could combine creativity with ethical judgment, a combination rare even among Valerians. After the simulation, Kira approached Elias privately. You think quickly, yet you weigh consequences. You consider others while pursuing a solution. That is human. Elias smiled slightly. We learn from each other, Your Majesty. Even when we are uncertain, we strive to do what is right. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She extended one of her hands toward him, a gesture rarely seen in her court. Walk with me, she said. Elias followed as she moved through the hall of reflection. The light played across the crystals, and for a brief time, the hum of energy seemed to synchronize with his own heartbeat. You understand your role, Kira said softly. Yet you also question, you also feel. That is dangerous and remarkable. Many beings act without thought, without consideration. You are different. I try to act with understanding, Elias replied. It is not always easy, but it is necessary. The Queen paused near a balcony overlooking the city. Humans, you carry potential that is difficult to measure. Your presence affects others in ways they cannot always see. That is why I spoke as I did. Elias took a breath. Your words yesterday? They were personal. I do not fully understand, but I will do my best to honor the trust they imply. Kira's eyes softened. Trust is earned, not given. Yet you have begun to earn mine. She paused. If you were my husband, it would not mean what it does to your species. It would signify partnership, loyalty, and shared responsibility. That is why the court is silent, why they watch, and why your actions matter more than any words. Elias realized the weight of her meaning. In Valerian culture, such a statement could signal alliances that changed the balance of power, trust that could shape generations, and influence that reached far beyond the personal. Yet it was also a test of character, a challenge to see if he could rise to the occasion. The rest of the afternoon involved smaller, subtle exercises, observing interactions among the court, making judgments about strategy and understanding hidden motives. Elias noticed how factions within the court shifted subtly based on his actions. The more he demonstrated fairness, courage, and insight, the more support he seemed to gain. By evening, the court gathered for a ceremonial meal. Elias observed carefully, mindful of each gesture and action. He noticed that small courtesies, a tilt of the head, the placement of a hand, the sequence of tasting food, conveyed meaning beyond words. He adapted, using human intuition to match the subtleties of Valerian protocol. The queen watched him throughout the meal, her expression calm but watchful. Elias felt the silent weight of expectation but also a quiet sense of approval. He realized that humans' greatest strength was not technology, not numbers, but the ability to act with intelligence, empathy, and courage even in unfamiliar situations. As the evening drew to a close, Elias and Mara returned to their quarters. "You handled today well," Mara said. "But that statement," the queen's words, "they're more than just a test, aren't they?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes. But I understand now that her intention is not simply personal. It is a measure of what humans can contribute. Our strength is in how we think, how we care, and how we act. That is what she is evaluating." He looked out the window at the glowing city of Valaris. The twin moons cast silver reflections across the towers, and he felt a quiet determination. Humans had arrived in this galaxy not as conquerors, but as something rarer. Beings capable of bridging differences, understanding others, and inspiring trust. And somewhere deep in the palace, Queen Kira watched, her thoughts unreadable but her curiosity about this human growing stronger. Elias Ward was no longer simply a diplomat. He had become a symbol of human potential, a reminder that even in a galaxy of advanced species, humanity could stand out through courage, intelligence, and empathy. The coming days promised greater challenges, but Elias felt ready. He knew that humans were capable of extraordinary things, not because of power or technology, but because of their hearts and minds. And he was determined to show the Valarians just how extraordinary humanity could be. The palace of Valaris had grown familiar to Captain Elias Ward, yet it never failed to awe him. The crystal walls shimmered with shifting colors, and the soft hum of energy pulsed beneath every surface. But today the atmosphere was tense. Whispers among the court hinted at factions forming, some intrigued by humans, others suspicious of them. Elias walked beside Lieutenant Mara Hayes, who leaned close. "Sir, I overheard some of the courtiers. They're plotting. Some want to test us, and some may even try to harm us." Elias frowned. "That's why we must stay vigilant. Observe first, act second." Humans survive not by strength alone, but by thinking ahead. Their first audience of the day was with the Queen, who sat in the Hall of Decisions, her throne glowing faintly under the soft light. Her forearms rested gracefully, and her eyes scanned the room, noting every detail. "Captain Ward," Kyra said, "the council today is divided. Some fear humans will disrupt the balance of power. Others believe you can offer solutions none of us can see. Watch carefully, act wisely." Elias bowed. "Understood, Your Majesty." The council session began. Alien diplomats debated trade agreements, defensive alliances, and territorial disputes. At first, Elias remained quiet, observing gestures, listening for tone shifts, and noticing subtle interactions. Then a sudden argument erupted between two factions. The voices were sharp and tension filled the air. One diplomat, tall and angular, accused the humans of being unpredictable, claiming their presence might destabilize the region. Another argued for collaboration, citing Elias's previous displays of insight, courage, and fairness. The room became a battleground of words and glances. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the chamber. Holographic projections of explosions and collapsing towers filled the room, a simulated attack. Elias quickly realized it was more than a test. Someone within the court had activated a security protocol, testing reactions under extreme stress. Without hesitation, Elias assessed the situation. "Mara, cover the exits. I'll coordinate with the simulation control." He moved quickly, directing the holographic chaos in a way that minimized danger to those around him. He used human intuition, reading patterns in the projections, predicting their movements, and protecting both the queen and innocent courtiers. The council watched in silence as Elias maneuvered through the crisis. He did not panic. Instead, he applied strategy, creativity, and empathy, qualities that were foreign yet effective in this alien court. Within moments, the simulation ended, leaving the room in stunned quiet. Kira's gaze softened slightly. "You act with decisiveness and clarity. Humans are remarkable," Elias bowed. "We act as we must, Your Majesty. We value life and logic equally." As the day progressed, Elias faced more subtle challenges. Courtiers attempted to provoke him, test his reactions, and manipulate outcomes to their favor. Each time he relied on patience, careful observation, and moral judgment. He refused to be drawn into conflict unnecessarily, but acted decisively when action was required. By afternoon, Elias was summoned to the Queen's private chambers. Kara's eyes held an intensity he could not read. "Captain Ward, some in my court fear change. They see humans as a threat to their traditions. Others see you as an opportunity. You must prove that humans are worthy of trust, not through words alone, but through deeds." Before Elias could respond, the chamber shook violently. Alarms blared. Mara and a few Valarian attendants rushed in. A sabotage attempt had been made. The palace's energy core had been tampered with, threatening structural collapse. Without hesitation, Elias sprang into action. He analyzed the core's energy flow, communicated with Valarian engineers through gestures and improvised signals, and coordinated a plan. Using a combination of human logic and creative problem-solving, he stabilized the core before any real damage occurred. The court, which had been observing from a distance, was astonished. They had expected humans to falter, to panic, or to follow only protocols. Elias had done none of these. He had acted decisively, calmly, and effectively. Kira approached him afterward. "Your actions saved lives today. You have demonstrated qualities beyond mere intelligence, courage, empathy, and adaptability. These are rare traits, Captain Ward. Rare indeed." Elias allowed himself a small sigh of relief. "I am grateful, Your Majesty. Humans may be young, but we have learned to act in ways that honor life and understanding." That evening, Elias attended a ceremonial feast with the Queen. He observed carefully, participating in the rituals that symbolized trust and respect. He noticed small details, how the placement of hands could indicate loyalty, how subtle shifts of weight could signal intention, and how silence often spoke louder than words. Through it all, Kira watched him with quiet approval. Elias began to understand the full meaning of her earlier words. "If you were my husband." It was not about romance in the human sense. It was about trust, partnership, and shared responsibility, a bond that extended to politics, diplomacy, and mutual respect. As night fell over Valaris, Elias returned to his quarters. The city shimmered beneath twin moons, casting reflections across the crystal towers. He realized that humans had been judged not by technology or strength, but by qualities that no machine could replicate: intelligence, empathy, courage, and moral integrity. Somewhere deep in the palace, Kira contemplated the human before her. She saw not just a visitor, but a being who could change the course of her world's future. Elias Ward was no longer simply a diplomat. He was a symbol of human potential, a reminder that even in a galaxy of ancient civilizations, humans could stand out. The following morning brought clarity. Captain Elias Ward understood that his role in Valaris was no longer simple diplomacy. It was about bridging worlds. Humans were strangers here, but the Queen's interest and her trust gave him a unique opportunity to demonstrate humanity's worth. He met Kira in the Hall of Reflection. The light shimmered around her throne and the air pulsed with energy. "Captain Ward," she said softly, "you have faced challenges with courage, wisdom, and empathy. The Council watches, the people watch, and your species has begun to inspire curiosity and respect. But the greatest test remains. Can humanity truly become a partner in our galaxy?" Elias bowed. "Your Majesty, humans seek understanding, friendship, and cooperation. We are prepared to learn, adapt, and contribute in ways that honor both our species." The Queen nodded. "Then you shall have the chance to prove it." The next challenge was both delicate and dangerous. A neighboring system faced ecological collapse due to resource mismanagement, and the Valarians had struggled to resolve the crisis. Elias was asked to propose a solution, working alongside alien engineers, strategists, and diplomats. He observed carefully, listening to conflicting opinions. Then he acted. Elias proposed a plan that combined human innovation with Valarian precision. Redistribute resources strategically, implement advanced recycling methods, and create a communication network to monitor progress. The proposal required diplomacy, technical skill, and trust. The engineers hesitated, but Elias's calm reasoning, combined with empathy for the affected populations, persuaded them. Within hours, the plan was approved and implemented, stabilizing the system and preventing disaster. The council erupted in cautious admiration. The Queen's eyes sparkled with approval. "Humans may be young," she said, "but they have qualities that even we find rare: insight, courage, and moral clarity." That evening, Elias attended a grand ceremony. The Queen honored him publicly, praising his intellect, courage, and integrity. The court watched, some in awe, others in surprise. Humans, they realized, were more than unpredictable outsiders. They were allies, capable of insight and bravery that could influence entire civilizations. Finally, the Queen spoke to Elias privately. Her tone was soft, almost tender. "If you were my husband," she said again, "it would symbolize trust, partnership, and the potential to change the course of history together. Humanity has begun to prove itself, and I see promise in your species that I have not seen in many others." Elias bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, humans will continue to prove themselves worthy. We act not for glory, but for understanding, cooperation, and the greater good." The Queen nodded. "Then let this be the beginning of a partnership, one that bridges our worlds, honors our differences, and celebrates the qualities that make humans remarkable." As Elias looked out across the city of Valaris, the towers glowing beneath twin moons, he understood the truth of the journey. Humans had arrived not to conquer or dominate, but to inspire respect, to act with courage, empathy, and intelligence. They had begun to bridge a vast gulf between worlds, showing that even in a galaxy of ancient civilizations, humanity could shine brightly. The day ended with quiet reflection. Elias knew the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges. But he also knew that humans had already achieved something extraordinary. They had earned respect, trust, and a place among the stars, and somewhere deep in the palace. Queen Kira watched, her thoughts unreadable but tinged with curiosity and hope. The human before her was not just a visitor. He was a symbol of what humanity could achieve, a spark of courage, ingenuity, and compassion in a galaxy that had never seen anything quite like it. Elias smiled softly, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humanity had crossed the stars, faced the unknown, and proven that even the youngest species could change the course.